Welcome to the Book Review Podcast. Today we're diving into Greg McKeown's transformative book, Essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less. And, this isn't just another self-help or business book. It's really a profound guide to reevaluating how you spend your time and energy. It promises a shortcut, kind of, to being truly well-informed and effective, not just busy. If you've ever felt stretched too thin, maybe overwhelmed by demands, or like you're making, a millimeter of progress in a million directions, then this book and this deep dive is definitely for you. McKeown challenges that popular myth that we can have it all.
Right, that whole idea.
Exactly. And instead, he offers this disciplined path, focusing on what truly matters, eliminating the non-essential, and making high-impact contributions, but with less effort.
Which sounds pretty good.
Doesn't it? It's filled with surprising facts, really compelling real-world anecdotes, and a clear, systematic approach. It's all about gaining control of your choices, achieving new levels of success, and actually finding joy in the journey. So let's start there. That feeling of being stretched too thin. It's something most of us know, right?
Oh, definitely. It's almost universal.
Yeah. There's that great quote from Lin Yutang, "The wisdom of life consists in the elimination of non-essentials." And McKeown illustrates this perfectly with the story of Sam Elliott. He's this capable executive in Silicon Valley. After his company got acquired, Sam just found himself constantly rushing, saying yes to everything, without really thinking.
Just reacting.
Totally. His stress just skyrocketed, his work quality declined, and he felt like he was, quote, majoring in minor activities, just completely unsatisfying.
In Sam's experience, it really captures what McKeown calls non-essentialism. It's when our energy gets diffused, spread thin across too many different activities.
So you're not really getting anywhere.
Exactly. Minimal progress in a million directions. He has this image in the book, right, where you see the same amount of effort.
Oh, yeah.
But in one picture, the energy is all scattered, pushing outwards in tiny bits. Nothing really moves. But the essentialist, they focus that same energy on fewer crucial things, and you see real, noticeable progress. It's all about impact, not just frantic activity.
And what I found really striking is how McKeown talks about this paradox of success. It unfolds in these four predictable flows. So first, you have real clarity of purpose, and that naturally leads to success.
Makes sense.
Right. Then with that success, you get this reputation as the go-to person. Suddenly, you're flooded with opportunities.
Or demands, really.
Exactly. That's the twist. In phase 3, these increased options, which are really just more demands on your time and energy, they lead to diffused efforts. You get spread thinner and thinner. And finally, phase 4, you become distracted from what should be your highest level of contribution.
Yeah.
It's this fascinating, almost ironic cycle. The very success you work for can undermine the clarity that got you there.
Wow. And that cycle, it's often fueled by this big idea, the idea that you can have it all.
Oh, constantly.
It's everywhere, isn't it? Advertising, corporations with their endless job descriptions, even university applications demanding dozens of extracurriculars. We've got this, exponential increase in choices and expectations. Now people are just cramming more into lives that are already overflowing.
And companies talk about work-life balance.
Right, but then they expect you to be on your smartphone 24/7. It makes you wonder, how did we get here? The word priority.
Yeah.
It came into English way back in the 1400s, and it was singular. It meant the very first or prior thing, singular, for 500 years.
No way.
Yeah. It was only in the 1900s that we pluralized it and started talking about priorities, which, when you think about it, is almost illogical.
Right. How can you have multiple first things?
Exactly. Like that leader McCann mentions, who talked about Pri 1, Pri 2, Pri 3, Pri 4, and Pri 5. It sounds like lots of priorities, but really...
it means nothing's a priority.
Precisely.
That is so true. And it connects to this great analogy McKeown uses, the closet.
The cluttered closet.
Yeah. Think about what happens if you never tidy your closet. It doesn't just stay neat, right? It gets cluttered, stuffed with clothes you maybe don't even wear anymore.
Just accumulates.
Our lives are like that, constantly being stuffed with new demands, like new clothes just shoved in. How many times have you started your workday with a clear plan, and by, say, 10 a.m.
totally off the rails.
Right. Or you make a to-do list in the morning, and by 5 p.m. it's somehow even longer. It just feels like there has to be a better way. And thankfully there is. McKeown argues that essentialism, it starts with this fundamental shift in mindset. It's not about doing one more thing. It's a whole different way of doing everything.
And a really key part of that mindset shift is rediscovering what he calls the invincible power of choice. It's surprisingly easy to forget that we actually can choose. McKeown mentions those experiments by Martin Seligman and Steve Mayer with the German Shepherds.
Vaguely, yeah.
Well, the dogs who had been conditioned to believe they were powerless against electric shocks, later, when they were put in a situation where they could easily escape, they just lay down. They didn't even try.
Wow.
It shows how easily we can kind of learn helplessness, lose sight of our own power to choose when we're conditioned otherwise. McKeown really emphasizes that this ability to choose, it's fundamental. It can be forgotten, maybe, but never truly lost.
And realizing that you have a choice, it then leads to this other big idea, the unimportance of practically everything.
Right. Which sounds a bit harsh at first.
It does. But Richard Koch, the author of the 80-20 principle, he puts it well. Most of what exists in the universe has little value and yields little result. On the other hand, a few things work fantastically well and have tremendous impact.
The vital few versus the trivial many.
Exactly. Think about Boxer, the horse from Animal Farm.
Oh, poor Boxer.
Right. His answer to every problem was, I will work harder. He was just tragic, exhausted, broken, because all that effort without any discernment just made things worse.
Maximum effort, minimum judgment.
Perfect summary. And it perfectly illustrates the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. And even this power law idea, like how some software developers are supposedly, 10,000 times more productive?
Yeah, these exponential differences in output.
So what does all this mean for you, listening right now, trying to navigate your own busy world? It means not all your efforts are equal. Some things you do yield far, far more value than others. Learning to spot those critical few. That's everything.
And once we grasp that, we can start deliberately thinking about trade-offs. Which problem do I want? Because strategy at its core is about making conscious choices. It's not just reacting by default.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, Southwest Airlines is a classic one. They became incredibly successful in a really tough industry because they made super clear trade-offs.
Like what?
Only point-to-point flights, no meals, no assigned seats, all specifically chosen to keep their costs rock bottom. Their competitor, Continental Light, tried to sort of straddle strategies.
Hedging their bets.
Yeah, adopting some of Southwest's stuff, but keeping their old model too. And they failed because they couldn't really compete effectively on either price or quality. They didn't make the hard choices.
That makes sense.
And this applies in huge moments too, like the Johnson & Johnson Tylenol crisis back in '82.
Oh, right. The tampering.
Yeah, 7 people tragically died. They faced this enormous decision. But they had their credo, written way back in 1943, literally carved in stone at headquarters.
And what did it say?
It explicitly prioritized customers first, shareholders last. That deep foundational commitment that was like significant pre-work, it enabled them to make the incredibly tough trade-off. Recall all Tylenol, a $100 million decision.
Wow, because their priority was clear.
Exactly. The clarity made the hard choice possible, even if it wasn't easy. And we see this in personal lives, too. McKeown mentions Harvard parents who consciously chose to go big on just one activity for their son, to really focus his effort.
Instead of spreading him thin across 10 things.
Right. Or his friend who prioritized family time over joining various social clubs. Essentialists don't ask, oh no, what do I have to give up? They ask, what do I want to go big on? It's a totally different frame.
That's a powerful reframe.
It really is. It reminds me of that slightly brutal 4-burner stove analogy.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that. Brutal is right.
Yeah. 1 burner for family, 1 for friends, 1 for health, 1 for work. To be successful, you have to cut off 1 burner.
Ouch.
And to be really successful, you have to cut off 2. It's maybe humorous, but it really points to the inherent trade-offs in life. You can't optimize everything.
Okay, that 4-burner stove thing definitely lands. It really hammers home the reality of trade-offs. So now let's shift gears a bit. Understanding why we get stretched thin is one thing, but the real question is, okay, how do we actually act on this? How do we start exploring and, crucially, eliminating the non-essentials?
Right, the practical side. This begins with consciously cultivating space to concentrate. McKeown talks about an executive who was so distracted by tech that to finish a really big project, he actually gave away his phone and checked into a motel with no internet for 8 weeks.
Whoa, that's extreme.
It sounds extreme, yeah, but his intention was crystal clear. Create Totally unencumbered space just for thinking. We see this pattern, though. Sir Isaac Newton spent 2 years working on his Principia Mathematica in what he called almost solitary confinement.
Just thinking.
Just thinking on it continually, as he put it. The author himself uses a monk mode for writing, blocking off 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. No emails, no calls, no interruptions, just focus.
It's interesting how our world now, filled with gadgets, has almost eliminated that boredom time. Yeah. The time we used to just think.
Totally. We've lost the space for reflection, which is why people like Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn, actually schedule up to 2 hours of just blank space on their calendar every day. He sees it as his most valuable productivity tool.
Not just back-to-back meetings.
No. And of course, there's Bill Gates and his famous Think Weeks. He literally goes away for a week just to read articles. His record is apparently 112 in 1 week.
Wow.
And books, study tech, think big picture stuff, even something smaller like dedicating 20 minutes a day to reading classic literature can broaden your perspective, remind you of timeless ideas. It creates mental space.
Okay, so create space, then what?
Then we need to really see what really matters. McHugh mentions Nora Ephron, the amazing writer. She learned from her high school journalism teacher about finding the lead, the who, what, when, why, the absolute essence of the story.
Getting to the core issue.
Exactly. And we need to apply that skill to our own lives. Think about that tragic Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crash in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
The crew got totally hyper-focused on a really minor detail, a burnt-out landing gear indicator light. They were so consumed by that.
They missed the big picture.
They missed the critical thing, the plane's altitude. The plane was fine mechanically, but their distraction led to a fatal crash. It really makes you ask yourself, am I losing sight of the bigger picture in my own life because I'm obsessed with some minor detail?
That's a sobering thought.
It is. And one practical way to combat this is keeping a journal. Not necessarily for every tiny detail, but to capture the headlines, the lead in your day, your week, your life. Looking for patterns, focusing on the larger issues.
Seeing the signal through the noise.
Precisely. Another great example is Jane Chen's team designing that baby incubator, the Embrace Nest.
Ah, yes, the Nepal story.
Right. They initially assumed the problem was cost making a cheaper incubator, but when they actually got out into the field in Nepal, talked to mothers, went to villages, they discovered the real problem wasn't cost. It was the lack of electricity in rural areas.
So a high-tech incubator wouldn't help.
Exactly. That insight clarified the real problem and led them to create a totally non-electric solution. It's about clarifying the actual question you're trying to answer. Like that Salesforce.com team who won a business simulation only after their coach forced them to clearly define, what question are you trying to answer? The power of clarifying the question itself is huge.
Okay, space to think. Look for what matters.
Yeah.
What else?
Next up, embrace play, the wisdom of your inner child.
Play. Really. In a book about being effective.
Absolutely. Play isn't frivolous, McKeown argues. It's actually essential for brain development, for reducing stress. It allows for more flexible, creative thinking. Stuart Brown, who's a leading expert on play, he suggests humans are actually the biggest players of all animal species.
Interesting.
When we play, we're engaged in this pure expression of our humanity, exploring possibilities without pressure. Even small elements of play in the workplace, like that easy button from Staples, can foster exploration and just a lighter, more creative mindset. It helps us see things differently.
Okay, I can see that. And then there's something maybe more obvious, but crucial. Sleep.
Oh, massively crucial. Sleep. Protect the asset.
Tell us about Jeff's story.
Jeff was this textbook overachiever, brilliant, driven, totally committed, but he was running on fumes, chronic sleep deprivation, and eventually his body just broke down. He started having physical anxiety attacks.
Wow. Just from lack of sleep.
Primarily. His ultimate realization after he recovered was incredibly simple but profound. Protect the asset, meaning protect yourself, your physical and mental capacity.
That changes everything.
It really does. The author mentions it shifted his perspective too, and he quotes Bill Clinton, who apparently said every major mistake he'd made in his life happened when he was tired.
That's telling.
And there's actual data. That's study on violinists aiming for 10,000 hours of practice. The best ones, the elite performers, they slept an average of 8.6 hours a day. Sleep wasn't getting in the way of practice, it was enhancing it.
So sleep makes practice more effective.
Exactly. Even companies like Google are getting it, putting in nap pods. It signals that sleep is a priority, not a luxury you cut back on. Essentialists see sleep as vital for operating at their highest level.
Okay, space, look, play, sleep. What's the last step in this exploration phase?
The last one is about being highly selective. Select. The power of extreme criteria.
Extreme criteria. Sounds intense.
It is, in a way. Derek Sivers, the TED speaker, he has this rule. Hell yeah or no.
I like that.
Right. If you don't feel total, utter conviction, a hell yeah about doing something, then the answer should just be no. A leader at Twitter put it more simply. If the answer isn't a definite yes, then it should be a no. No maybes. And McKeown introduces this practical tool, the 90% rule. You score opportunities on a scale of 1 to 10. Anything that gets a 9 or 10, that's a potential yes. Anything under a 7 is an obvious no. But here's the crucial part.
What about the 7s and 8s?
They're also a no.
Really? Even an 8?
Even an 8.
Yeah.
Because those 7s and 8s are often good opportunities, but they're not essential. They distract you from the 9s and 10s. It's actually incredibly liberating to have such strict criteria. Imagine your closet again. What if it only had clothes you absolutely loved, the 9s and 10s?
That would be amazing. Less decision fatigue, too.
Exactly. There's a furniture company, Vitso, that only offers one main product, the 606 Universal Shelving System, because it meets their extremely high singular criteria of less but better.
Wow, that's focus.
Or Nancy Duarte's communication agency. They became the absolute best in presentation design because they said no to all other kinds of work, even well-paid work. They focused entirely on their one thing, inspired by Jim Collins' Good to Great.
So how do we apply this, that 90% rule?
McKeown suggests a systematic process. Write down the opportunity. Then list 3 minimum criteria it must meet to even be considered. If it fails those, it's out immediately.
Yeah.
Then list 3 ideal or extreme criteria, the things that would make it a 9 or 10. If it doesn't meet at least 2 out of those 3 extreme criteria, it's still a no, even if it met the minimum.
Setting an incredibly high bar for what gets your yes.
Precisely. It forces you to reserve your energy for the truly essential.
Okay, so identifying what's essential using these methods is one huge part. But then comes the really challenging bit, right? Eliminating the non-essentials.
Absolutely. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Back to the closet analogy, It's not enough to just identify the clothes you don't wear. You have to actually take them out.
You have to remove them.
McKeown gives us this killer question here. If I didn't have this opportunity already, what would I be willing to do to acquire it? That really flips the script.
It does. It fights that status quo bias.
And ultimately, he says the essential question that reveals your true priorities is simply, what will I say no to? That's where the clarity comes.
And having that clarity is incredibly powerful because it enables what McKeown calls one decision that makes 1,000.
Okay, explain that.
Well, think about vague company mission statements. McKeown shares some funny examples that could literally apply to almost any company.
Yeah, full of buzzwords.
Right. And that vagueness often leads to disunified teams. He identifies 2 common patterns. One is playing politics, where goals are unclear. So people try to guess what the boss wants. They vie for favor, maybe overvalue non-essential things like social media followers.
Wasted energy.
Totally. The other pattern is it's all good, which is bad.
Yeah.
This is where there's maybe no clear leader, everyone's doing their own thing, lots of disparate activities that don't actually add up to anything meaningful.
Sounds chaotic.
It is. Now, contrast that with Brad Pitt's Make It Right Foundation after Hurricane Katrina. Their goal was incredibly concrete and inspiring: to build 150 affordable, green, storm-resistant homes for families living in the lower Ninth Ward.
Super specific?
Exactly. It was real. You could measure it. It was inspiring. It clearly answered the question, how will we know when we have succeeded? So the key question for us becomes, how do we create that kind of clear, actionable intent, that essential intent in our own lives and work?
And to actually achieve that clarity, to eliminate the non-essentials, you have to. Well, you have to dare. You need dare. The power of a graceful no.
Courage, it's absolutely central to this whole process.
McKeown points to Rosa Parks. Her refusal to give up her seat wasn't about being generally assertive. It came from this deep, quiet, resolute conviction.
It was rooted in purpose.
Exactly. So for you listening, it means finding the courage to say no, even when it feels awkward or uncomfortable. And let's be honest, it often does.
Oh, yeah. Saying no is hard.
I know, I struggle with it. McKeown shares a great story about Cynthia's father. He actually canceled a work meeting because he had a planned date with his 12-year-old daughter. That shows real clarity and commitment.
Powerful example.
We're just wired to get along, aren't we? Saying no can feel physically uncomfortable, like we're risking social connection.
That fear of social awkwardness is real.
But McKeown frames the choice so clearly. A few minutes of potential awkwardness or regret if you say no, versus potentially days, weeks, or even years of resentment and regret if you say yes to something non-essential that drains you.
It's a trade-off, again. Short-term discomfort for long-term benefit.
Exactly. And he gives some really practical ways to say no gracefully, like just a simple no, or maybe no, but offering an alternative. Or let me check my calendar and get back to you, which buys you time. The email auto response saying, you're in monk mode.
That's a good one for focus time.
Totally. And my personal favorite for when a boss piles on more work. Yes. What should I deprioritize?
Puts the choice back on them. Very effective.
Right. He lists 8 distinct strategies in the book. Things like using humor, or saying, you are welcome to X, I'm willing to Y, or I can't do it, but X might be interested. Lots of tools for that toolkit.
And sometimes it's not about saying no to new things, but about getting out of things you're already doing. That's uncommit. Win big by cutting your losses.
Cutting your losses.
This tackles the sunk cost bias. The Concorde jet is the classic example.
Right, the supersonic plane.
Yeah. It was a financial disaster for decades, but the British and French governments kept pouring money into it, basically because they'd already poured so much money into it. That's sunk cost bias.
Throwing good money after bad.
Exactly. It makes us keep investing in losing propositions just because we've already incurred a cost. It's why we sit through a movie we hate.
Guilty.
Or keep renovating a house that's become a money pit. Yeah. Or like that guy Henry Gribham who lost $2,600 at a carnival game trying to win back his money on an Xbox Connect. The non-essentialist trap is asking, why stop now? I've already put so much in. The essentialist asks, knowing what I know now, if I weren't already invested in this, how much would I invest in it today?
That reframes it completely.
It does. And McKeown gives antidotes. To fight the endowment effect, valuing something more just because you own it, pretend you don't own it yet. Ask what you'd sacrifice to obtain it now. To fight the fear of waste, you have to just admit failure sometimes. Acknowledge the sunk cost is gone and move on. Get over it to get ahead.
Easier said than done sometimes.
For sure. Also, be aware of status quo bias. Apply zero-based budgeting to your commitments, start from scratch periodically, and make every single commitment justify its existence anew. Don't just keep doing things because you've always done them.
A commitment audit.
Exactly. And finally, to fight FOMO, the fear of missing out, try running a reverse pilot. Temporarily remove an initiative or commitment and see if anyone actually notices or if it truly matters.
Okay, that's practical.
Yeah.
So we uncommit. What's next in elimination?
Next is edit, the invisible art.
Editing our lives.
Kind of, yeah. Think about film editing. Michael Kahn, who edited a lot of Spielberg's movies, he's won multiple Oscars, right? But editing is often called the invisible art. You don't notice good editing, you just experience a better film.
Right, it flows seamlessly.
And making a film better often means subtracting scenes, dialogue, even characters. The same applies to our lives. Making things better often means subtracting.
So how do we edit our lives?
McKeown gives 4 principles. First, cut out options. Don't just delay decisions or postpone tasks, actively delete non-essential options or commitments.
Be decisive.
Second, condense. Do more with less. Think of Graham Hill's lifeedited.com project, tiny apartments where every piece of furniture serves multiple functions. Or that employee who condensed a rambling 2-hour meeting into a focused 10-minute update by just asking what he'd missed.
Finding the essence.
Third, correct. Sometimes editing involves fixing bad assumptions or heading in the wrong direction. And fourth, interestingly, edit less.
Edit less.
Yeah. Know when to show restraint. Resist the urge to tinker endlessly, to reply all to every email, to add your 2 cents in every meeting just to be heard. Sometimes the most essential edit is doing nothing.
Letting things be. Okay. And the final elimination technique.
Setting limit. The freedom of boundaries.
Boundaries. Always important.
Absolutely. McKeown tells a story about Jin Young, this brilliant executive whose boss, the famous Clayton Christensen, actually insisted she set boundaries to protect her time for essential work, even boundaries against him.
Wow, that's a great boss.
Isn't it? It sounds counterintuitive maybe, but boundaries don't actually limit you, they liberate you. Think about a school playground right next to a busy road.
Okay.
Without a fence, the kids huddle near the building, scared to go near the road. Their play area is small. But once you put up a fence, they can safely use the entire playground. The boundary actually expands their freedom.
That's a fantastic analogy.
It really illustrates it, right? Clear boundaries liberate us from other people's agendas, hijacking our time and energy. They allow us to explore the full range of options within the space we've deliberately chosen.
So how do we create these boundaries?
One key way is to craft social contracts. Talk upfront with colleagues, your boss, your family. Agree on priorities, on communication expectations, on what constitutes an emergency. Setting these limits proactively prevents so much wasted time and energy dealing with burdensome requests later. It's about mutual respect for what's truly important.
Okay, so we've explored what's essential. We've learned how to eliminate what's not. That's huge. Now, how do we make the actual doing of the vital few things, well, almost effortless?
Right, this is about effortless execution. It starts with building in a buffer, the unfair advantage.
A buffer, like a cushion.
Exactly. Remember the story of Joseph in Egypt saving them from famine? He stored 1/5 of the harvest during the good years. That was a massive buffer against the bad year.
Ah, okay. Preparation.
Yes. Non-essentialists often assume the best-case scenario will happen. They fall victim to Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available.
I'll definitely know that one.
Like that workshop facilitator McKeown mentions. He initially couldn't get an hour for Q&A. The schedule was too tight. But then the rush class ran over, proving he actually needed that luxurious hour buffer all along.
Mm-hmm.
Or think of the mother who packed for a family holiday a whole week in advance. She avoided all that last-minute stress and had a smooth, frictionless journey. That's a personal buffer.
Less rushing, less stress.
Exactly. Nationally, think about North Sea oil. The UK basically spent its windfall as it came. Norway, on the other hand, created a massive sovereign wealth fund, a buffer for future rainy days.
Different long-term thinking.
Very different. Essentialists practice extreme preparation. Think Roald Amundsen versus Robert Falcon Scott in the race to the South Pole.
Ah, the famous race.
Amundsen meticulously prepared for every possible contingency, building supply depots, calculating food needs precisely. Scott kind of hoped for the best, didn't prepare nearly as thoroughly. Amundsen succeeded. Scott and his team tragically perished. Preparation, the buffer, was key.
So we need to fight our natural optimism.
We need to fight the planning fallacy. That's the term Daniel Kahneman uses for our tendency to underestimate how long tasks will take, even if we've done them before. There was a study where students estimated how long their senior thesis would take.
And they were way off.
Way off. Their actual completion times were much longer than even their worst-case scenario estimates. So to counter this, McKeown suggests using scenario planning for important projects. Ask yourself 5 key questions about the risks.
Like what?
What's the worst-case scenario? What's the social or financial impact if it fails? How can I invest now in time or resources to reduce those risks? It forces you to think ahead and build in those crucial buffers. It makes the execution smoother, more effortless down the line.
Okay, build buffers. What else helps with effortless execution?
Next is subtract. Bring forth more by removing obstacles.
Subtracting again, like editing.
Similar idea, but focused on removing blockers to progress. Lao Tzu said, "To attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, subtract things every day."
Nice.
Think about that business parable, the goal. The factory was failing, and they only turned it around once they identified the constraints, the bottlenecks, the slowest hiker in the group, essentially, that were holding the entire system back. Just making other parts faster didn't help until the constraint was addressed.
Find the bottleneck.
Find it and remove it. Or the Richmond Police Department example. They shifted from just reacting to crime to issuing positive tickets for good behavior, trying to eliminate criminal activity before it happened by addressing root causes like lack of opportunity. The real insight here is making a one-time investment in removing obstacles rather than constantly applying pressure or just adding more resources as band-aids. You create a clearer path forward by taking things away.
Making it easier to move forward. I like that.
And that leads naturally to progress, the power of small wins.
Small wins. Okay.
You know the Silicon Valley mantra, done is better than perfect?
Yep.
That ties into the minimal viable product idea. For essentialists, McKeown talks about minimal viable progress. It's about starting small and building momentum.
Not waiting for perfection.
Exactly. Pixar is a great example. They don't just write a script and shoot a movie. They use storyboards, create rough animations, get feedback in small cycles, constantly iterating. John Lasseter, their creative chief, famously said, "We don't actually finish our films, we release them."
Always improving, but moving forward.
Right. And the power of starting small is huge. Maybe you spend just 4 minutes today outlining that big speech that's 6 months away.
Yeah.
Or take 15 seconds at the start of a meeting to just jot down the key objectives. These tiny actions create valuable dividends over time. They build momentum and make daunting tasks feel much more achievable. Small wins fuel bigger wins.
Okay, small wins build momentum. What about consistency?
That brings us to flow. The genius of routine.
Routine. Some people resist that.
They do, but think about Michael Phelps. His pre-race routine was incredibly detailed, meticulous.
Yeah, the headphones, the stretching.
Exactly. Warm-ups, stretches, taking out earbuds at specific moments. He repeated it so consistently that it became automatic. It allowed him to perform almost effortlessly under immense pressure.
It freed up his mind.
Precisely. Neuroscience backs this up. Repetition strengthens neural connections for routine tasks. Charles Duhigg, in The Power of Habit, explains how the brain can almost completely shut down during routines, freeing up mental energy for more complex thinking or dealing with the unexpected.
So routine isn't the enemy of creativity.
Quite the opposite, according to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who studied flow. He found that highly creative people often rely on strict routines to manage their energy and free up their minds for their most important creative work.
Interesting. So routine provides structure for freedom.
Exactly. I know I find having a consistent morning routine really helps free up my mental energy for problem solving later in the day. Even Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter and Square, apparently uses themed days of the week like Mondays for management, Tuesdays for product to focus his attention and prevent routine fatigue. It channels energy.
Okay, routine is powerful.
Yeah.
What's the final piece for effortless execution?
The final piece is about staying present.
Oh.
Focus. What's important now?
WIN. What's important now?
Exactly. Larry Gelwicks, that highly successful high school rugby coach, constantly asks his players that simple question, what's important now? It keeps them focused on the present moment, not dwelling on a past mistake, not worrying about the final score, just focusing on the play right now.
On the process, not just the outcome.
Right. Focusing on how they are playing, their own game, not the opponent's. McKeown connects this to the ancient Greek words for time. There's chronos, sequential, clock time, and then there's kairos, the opportune moment, the right time, the perfect time.
Cairo.
Essentialists learn to focus on kairos, being fully present and engaged in the critical moment. McKeown shares a personal story of being in a hotel room, distracted by his phone, feeling overwhelmed. He paused, asked himself, what's important now? And clarified his real priorities. Connect with his family back home, then do just a couple of things to prepare for the next morning, allowing him to sleep well.
Bringing focus back to the present essential.
Yes. And Jeffrey Rogers, an executive, practices what he calls the pause that refreshes. When he gets home, he stops at his front door, takes a deep breath, consciously lets the work issues fall away so he can be fully present with his family. It reminds me of Lao Tzu again. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. That deep presence in the kairos moment, that's the ultimate focus.
Wow. What a journey through the power of essentialism. From understanding the problem to finding the essence, exploring, eliminating, and then executing effortlessly. It really makes me think of Mahatma Gandhi. McKeown mentions how Gandhi dedicated his life to reducing himself to zero, consistently eliminating the non-essentials in pursuit of liberation. It just showcases the incredible power of subtraction.
It's a lifelong practice, really.
Definitely. Being an essentialist is a choice, as McKeown says, and it's probably a long process, not an overnight switch. But the benefits seem huge. More clarity, more control, more joy, and that effortless execution we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Getting more done by doing less, essentially.
Yeah. The author even shares his own story, deciding on a Stanford or bust strategy for his graduate work. He said no to all other options, really focused, and believes that focus led to his highest contribution, which includes writing this very book.
That single-minded focus paid off.
It really seems like it. So, as you, our listener, go about your day today, and maybe think about this, what's just one thing you can choose to subtract, not just delay, but actually remove, to make space for what truly matters to you? Because the disciplined pursuit of less, it really starts with that single choice, right here, right now. Thanks for listening to the Book Review Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. See you next time.